review for this week. My name is Eva Murray, in case you didn't know, and I'm going to give some feedback on Makeover Monday visualizations for this week. I'm going to ask Andy, in case he's watching, if he can check that my setup is filling up the screen and not some weird square format. Now, let me share my screen so that you can see what's going on. We have, first up, in case you're new to all of this, we have the data sets are on the Makeover Monday website, all listed in this table. You can find them there. So the latest one is American Business Formations. And there's a link to the data, a link to Watch Me Viz, which is the live stream Andy does on Mondays, where he basically lets you in on his thought process and builds his visualization live with the chat being open to all of you. So you can watch and participate as well. And there's a link to this review right now, the source and the data source. A bit wider. Which one, this or that? Okay, oops.
The screen share.
The screen share, a bit wider. There we go. Okay, so this should hopefully now look good and fill up your screen. And we are going to go over to the Makeover Monday hashtag. Where did it go? Let me try that again. See full results. Here we go. Apologies, guys. I'm not doing this for the first time, I promise. And again, all right, let's try this again. Here we go. Latest, and let's scroll down a little bit. So the idea of this session is to provide people with some feedback. I might not get to your viz, but I'll get to a bunch of vizzes that hopefully you will benefit from the feedback as well, and you can incorporate it into what you're doing. And I'm going to try and cover a variety of visualizations so that we don't just look at bar charts for the next half hour. Let me go down a little bit. Yesterday, no, the 19th was the day that this came out. Okay. There's some other stuff sometimes in the Makeover Monday hashtag, as you can see. There's something on penguins, which... Okay, let's use Lunar Modules viz. Lunar Module LM7 has participated in Makeover Monday ever since I can remember, really. So I should probably actually bring up the original because I haven't seen it yet. It's been a bit of a wild week, and it is from the United States Census. And there's the map. By the way, if you're tuned in, feel free to say hi in the chat. I always like knowing who is joining us. Bit of an earlier time this week because I have to go to the airport after this. So we have business applications, which I'm guessing is applications to open a business. From corporations with planned wages. Okay, so business applications across the different states. This is August, percent change by region. Okay, let's have a look what we have here. Okay, this is interesting. So this is basically a calendar view of the US based, nice little tile chart. I like it. I like that you can see that there are months where people don't make as many applications. Oh, no, there are months where they make more. So I thought that blue was less and red was more, but it's the other way around. So that's maybe the first bit that I was confused by. This could be a personal preference where I just tend to make, I suppose red in this visualization has a bit of a negative connotation of there aren't that many people trying to open a business. So blue being more like the positive business color, red being not as much happening. I thought it was the other way around. But I would explain that. I would explain the color legend more than just percentage change year over year. Let me take a quick detour. I attended an event yesterday, and one of my favorite data people, John Byrne Murdoch from the Financial Times, he spoke about how to make visualizations more impactful. And I was so pleased that he said many of the things that we've also been talking about through Makeover Monday. And I have on my phone here, I took photos of his slides because he had these really great lessons in there. And the first one, which I want to read out, is that text and other annotation adds enormous value for non-chart people, acting as a guiding hand, showing them what message the chart is imparting and preparing the ground for further exploration. Essentially what his message was throughout this talk is use a really good title and use more text than you probably would typically use, because it gives people who don't have a data background and who aren't familiar with visualizations a chance to understand your work. So you've probably come across his work, the work of him and his team, through the corona pandemic, because they did amazing charts that were informative, clear, they explained stuff, and they had lots of annotations to help us understand what was going on. So if I apply that lesson particularly, but also other stuff he said to this visualizations, I would say the title, it says what it is, but it doesn't really tell me anything. What is business applications? Genuinely, what is it? Because it could be, when you think about a technology context for applications, well, maybe it's a software for a business. Business applications, from my understanding, is people or groups of people applying to open a business. So say that, and how they have changed year over year. Don't say YOY, because people don't know what YOY stands for. I would say most people. If you ask 10 randoms on the street, what does YOY stand for? I would imagine that at least 9 of them probably don't know. Explain acronyms, spell things out. You can use them later on. You could say year over year in brackets, YOY, so that you can then use the abbreviation, but don't make it cryptic. So that's my main message here. I think what's nice to see in this layout is there are clear months of when people open businesses, or make the application. I don't know what the process is after that, but I imagine it's fairly quick. So in January, in February, start of the year, but also October. I don't know why October, maybe after summer, September kind of ramps up a bit. October is very popular. And then December, they might just do it so that they can get started in the new year. So I think it's a good viz that can be more effective if text is used effectively. Okay, quick look at the comments. Okay, yes. Oh, Andy has posted a link to LM7's profile on Tableau Public, 402 visualizations. So a lot of work having been put in there. And good morning, Tammy. What an early start for you. Great to see you on here. Tammy is in Southern Florida. South Florida? You know what I mean, near Miami. Okay, let's find the next viz. That's not a viz. That's an older one. Business formation statistics. Okay, let's have a look. This is Aaron Simmons. I think we had Aaron participate last week as well. Okay, so he includes a link to the original challenge. I wonder where that takes us. Okay, so I don't know if I would necessarily call that original challenge. I would just say click for maybe Make a Monday challenge, because I don't know if we're the original challenge. We just happened to use it this week. My recommendation, if you want to include your photo, that's totally up to you, and your credentials, but don't put them in the most prominent, most valuable space of the visualization. That's where you want to tell people what the title is. Put your stuff at the bottom, because they probably, once they've read through it, they'll say, I wonder who built this. So fine if it's at the bottom. I wouldn't put it at the top, because this is prime real estate in the top left corner. And I actually have another lesson from John's presentation yesterday about it. Basically, the way people read charts and visualizations is a Z pattern. So they start with the title, they go kind of down across through the middle, and they read the stuff at the bottom. So that's how they scan it. That's why you want your title to be impactful. And I would say with this title, again, business formation statistics, it tells me more about it being the formation of business rather than business applications. But quite frankly, and I'm being direct here, when I read business formation statistics, I'm not jumping up and down with excitement. Like, it doesn't sound exciting or interesting. If you told me, so for example, there's a line chart, there's something going on here. If you told me there's been this steep, unexplainable, dramatic, don't make it over the top, but there's been a dramatic decline in the number of applications to open a business, in that time frame, I will say, oh, okay, I wonder why. Let me explore. But if you just tell me these are statistics, personally, I'm like, why do I want to look at statistics? I want to look at information. Maybe I want to look at a story or at insights. I definitely don't want to look at statistics, because in my mind, that's just a wallpaper of numbers like I get in Excel. So there is a map, and I think interactive maps are great, especially because, well, This one is dynamic and it filters the charts, which is really cool. And I think here, especially for a US audience, they would say, what's it like in my state? I think that's the most obvious kind of first use case for this. It says hover on any state to see its decline. Bring that closer to the chart. I didn't read the stuff in the gray box because the gray box always to me means I can kind of ignore that probably because grayed out means I can't really take action. So also hover is blue and underlined, but it's not a hyperlink. In digital, only underline things that are hyperlinks because that tends to be what people automatically assume. If it's underlined, they can click on it. So I would just split that up a bit to say, it's great that he has included the hover on any state because it tells me what to do, but bring that closer to where the hovering actually happens because it's a bit too much in the middle. And again, we've got QOQ, so this should be quarter over quarter. But also you don't have to call it quarter over quarter. You could say, comparison of one quarter to the next or something like that, like plain language, unless you're aiming for a very data literate and maybe financial literate or business literate audience that understands those terms. I don't know what this line, like what are these bars? Is that, it's the quarter over quarter change, but is it a timeline? Is it the states? Is it every individual state? Okay, so this is every individual quarter, but I don't have a label. Oh, the label is further down. There you go. So I hadn't scrolled, but you want to, I guess I could make it bigger, but you also might want to label the start at the end just on the line so that it's obvious straight away. Hence, me scrolling and revealing it. Okay. Then we have Carl. Okay. So, why did this not open up? Here we go. So Carl Erickson. So he's got a black background, which in this case, I'm fine with because I can still see everything very clearly. He's used nice bright colors, white and orange, and then kind of shades or a white-orange gradient. I always question, do you need a background? Some people prefer dark backgrounds on their screens, and that's totally fine. But it needs to be a deliberate choice. And I think here the design works because everything is easy to read. But on a black background, our perception of colors change. So just be mindful that if you use a dark background or a different colored background, everything still needs to be really, really obvious to see. And black and white is the strongest contrast. So that's always a good option. So I like that it says United States business formations. Again, yes, but you can make a title longer than 4 words. Go for 2 lines, like explain something in the title. You could possibly take something around something from this description. I like that there's a description because it sets the context and it teaches me about this data set and what I'm looking at. Then we have the year-over-year change. So this is interesting because in the previous viz, we saw that things have gone down, but here it looks like everything has gone up. This was in 2020. So maybe it doesn't take into account the years of the global financial crisis, which probably skewed the results. So this looks like it's only going from, well, I'm not sure because it talks about 2020 and 2021. This chart is 2016 to 22. This chart is 2020, 2020, and then this one down at the bottom starts in 2015. So I find it confusing why there are different time frames for the different elements on the dashboard. And I would say those that are above each other, so the bar chart and the line chart, they should have the same the same time frame. So at least it's consistent. If I read down 2020 and 2020 are like, should be aligned. But so it's interesting to see the different industries, the breakdown there. I think that's really helpful because it shows there's growth. I like that. And then there's addition. Okay, hover. So viz and tooltips. my personal opinion is the first time I hover, I'm freaked out that there's some like big thing popping up. It can be really useful, but I can never interact with it. Like I want to touch it, like I want to do something with the chart there and explore that, but I can't. Like that's not doing anything. So maybe, I mean, if I click on these, it doesn't filter the rest. That could be an interesting use of the sorry, it's still early. You could use the filters that way, so that if you hover, you get the Vision tooltips, but if you click, that the other charts update, because then I could see a drill down into Alaska, for example, or I could see, see, this is the problem with Vision tooltips. It's like, how can I go to the next thing? So let's say Georgia. I would love to see what are the industries like in Georgia and what's the annual year-over-year change, because you see the monthly application volume. So that's basically the same chart as the bottom left. But then you don't need that chart in the tooltip. You can keep the tooltip nice and small and just update the rest of the dashboard. That could be an idea. Okay, let's continue. Okay, we're not going to cover Andes, but also we've seen similar things. Okay, this is interesting. Let's look at this one. Oh, no, I think I have to open the image in a new tab so it's nice and big. Business formation surged during pandemic and remains strong. And yes, I think this is my favorite title so far because it actually tells me something. You could say business formation in the US because it is just US data. And I think the US audience will feel more interested because they know it's something about their environment, but everyone else will also know it's about the US. And it's not mentioned anywhere that this is only for the US except for the source. And of course, if it's the US Census, I will assume it's US data, but maybe they have data on other stuff as well. So you need to put that in there. And these smooth lines, they always look nicer than the spiky ones. But I think there's always that debate of, do you smooth them and you are kind of giving us a line that's not exactly in that point? I think for design reasons it works. It looks nice and it gives me a general idea. And given that this is an image and I can't drill down, it doesn't really matter all that much. Yeah, I like that there's that context, the older or the past years being there for context in gray and dotted lines. I think that's a really nice touch to just show how low it was and then how it shot up. And I'm imagining that because so much happened in 2020, interestingly enough, given that it was 2020, but so much happened there that it probably like petered out a bit over the coming years because, yeah. So the y-axis doesn't start at 0. That's okay because we have a line chart. We don't have a bar chart where, the heights would be compared. Okay, so I like the design. I think it just needs a couple of adjustments. Okay, let's look at Rob's. Oh, okay. Okay, Andy's posted a bunch of stuff. Oh, okay. Sorry, I just needed to quickly check the comments. I think Andy has it under control. American business formations. Again, I would say I would, make that a bit more informative. Business applications ranked by the year-on-year percentage change by state. I need to wrap my head around that. So the business applications are ranked, and so it's each state. So basically, okay, I really like that next to the rank, we have largest increase, median change, and smallest increase or biggest decrease. That's really helpful for me to just comprehend, okay, to remind myself what does the ranking mean at this point in time? So basically, in 2016, Wyoming had the largest increase in business applications compared to the prior year. That's really interesting. It's hard a little bit just visually with all those state names because they're so small, the font, and I'm sure you could blow it up, but it would get not, the resolution would decrease quite a bit. You could possibly, it doesn't look quite as nice, but you could possibly use the 2-letter abbreviations just so that you can then potentially increase the font size. Not sure. It's an interesting one. The ones I find most interesting are, of course, the orange ones and the blue ones. So there's a lot of gray that I probably just by default would ignore. So maybe that's my feedback here. There's a lot of data and a lot of information that I will ignore because it's not the extreme. So what value do I get kind of from the fat middle? Is the story just at the bottom and the top? Maybe something to think about. Okay. This. I'm just going to skip over the ones that are okay. Anastasia. We don't have a link, so we'll use the image. So she's also used a tile map, business applications. I'm not going to comment on the title every time. You guys know what I mean. It has. So we have business applications, and then we have from corporations. But then what's the difference? So is one from private people, maybe opening a small business, and the other one is corporations that are opening a new one? I would like to understand what the difference is. And then deviation from the mean. I would say that metric, while totally valid, isn't all that meaningful with that title. You could say deviation from the average, but I would just say above or below average. Like simple language, nothing technical. And you might feel like, oh, you're dumbing it down, but you're not really. You're just making it more accessible to a broader audience. And that's what we tend to preach in Maker Monday, because you're posting to the internet, so anyone could read it. But also, don't underestimate in your workplace when you share dashboards and visualizations how many people don't really know how all these things work, or how to interpret charts, or how to analyze data, how to interpret statistics. And it's better to keep it simpler and be told, oh yeah, I understand. Can we go deeper? Than to make it complex and people are afraid to ask, and it's over their head and they got nothing from it, and they might not ask in the future. So err on the side of simplicity. Average business, so I would spell that out. Click on KPI, change the metric. But where is this KPI thing? Is that, well, I can't obviously do it in the image anyway. There wasn't a link, but I don't understand how the clicking would work. And the bottom chart isn't explained at all. So I see it's the states, and I see, sorry, this the regions, and I see it's across the years, but I don't know what this chart is actually showing me. So you'll have to explain that as well. Okay. Oh no, what did I do? This has happened before. And let's just go the other way. So we've got Madeline. Oh, this is for past Maker Monday. Sophonius. Okay, let's have a look. Okay. We'll just look at the chart. I've commented enough on titles. Actually, source, it says business formation statistics, but this should actually be the source of the place where the data came from. So the US Census Bureau should be listed in there. Okay, so it's always the change from 20, well, I guess the change over time, which is, that's fine. I like the chart. I like the idea. It's nice and simple. And I would make it even simpler by removing these filters, these drop-down filters, because again, as somebody who just looks at this, I'm like, why do I care? Why do I care what the industry is? Unless somebody tells me, oh my God, there are 3 industries that are so wacky, you should check them out. But then I don't need a list of 20. So I would stick to one story. So maybe business applications for retail are super interesting because you see this big spike. Remove the filter, just tell us the 2 things, business applications and retail trade, explain them a little bit, and point out what happened. So I can see there's a spike. I want to know why, or I want to know what happened. And what you don't need is to make the line thicker as the value is higher on the y-axis, because it's already going up. So you're double encoding the data, and you don't need to do that. Let's keep them all the same thickness. Like I can see the spike already, and I really like those reference bands for COVID and for the Great Depression, and that gives me a really good reference point for what's going on. But yeah, don't be afraid to pick a simple story. It doesn't always have to cover all the data. You don't have to give people any options to filter. Like you can just give them a picture essentially, but with a really interesting story, because they'll get more from that than just clicking around and being like, I don't really know what I'm looking at and what I'm doing here. Okay. So Otto's Viz, we have on Tableau Public as well. New business applications in the USA, sector by sector growth, charted through recent presidential terms of office. That's really interesting. And I think the title, it's already better. New business applications, I think makes it clearer what we're looking at in the USA. You don't need the blue background because you're using, well, so this is a tricky one because you're using blue and red for increase and decline, which is fine, but you're also using it in the context of politics. So of course, every politician is going to be either a Democrat or a Republican. And I'm thinking here, oh, Obama had all these great blue years, and there's these, like, I'm thinking of politics now because of these colors. So pick different colors for the increase or decline, or you don't even have to give them colors because they are, downward rather than upward. So I can see it's a decline. And then you don't have the political connotation of in the data. In terms of the design, I find the font a bit hard to read. It's quite tight, like the characters are really close together. And it looks like it might be bold, or maybe it's just the font style. I would make that a bit simpler and maybe chunk the text into 2 text boxes rather than these really long rows, because they all, the second row like ends quite early. So you could compress maybe the first 2 paragraphs on the left and then the next 2. Bush's second term, Obama's first term. Do I want to go any further? Of course, Trump's first term, and then Biden's first term. I think it's interesting, but I also am a little bit skeptical of just how much influence a single president, which is the suggestion here, has on new business applications. Yes, the president, kind of runs the government and stuff, and there is so much that goes into whether an environment is suitable for opening a business and is inviting new business growth beyond who is in charge. And also there's so much in the economy, like especially with the Great Depression and then COVID. Under any president, those things would have had a significant impact. So I don't know if there's really a story here. Yeah. Watch the rise and fall mining truck. Okay, I don't understand that. But yeah, I'm not convinced. I like the idea, and I think it just needs a little bit of tidying up to make it visually a bit simpler. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of colors, and just a lot of elements, and I think that needs to be a bit simpler. And you could think about pivoting the chart by 90 degrees so I can read these labels, and then you just have a horizontal bar chart instead of a vertical one. Okay. Okay. Team. Oh, we have some. Okay. Well, this is from 2020. Oh, we have Sam Parsons. I know he's on. I know he's tuned in. He's watching. So let's check out Sam's viz. Random piece of trivia. Sam designed the cover for my second book, and I'm still grateful. I really like it. So, pandemic fuels US entrepreneurship boom. So this is quite a large viz. I've got a very large screen here. Admittedly, two separate windows go open, so it's probably a normal sized window. It covers a lot of my real estate. So I'm probably like, this is what I would read. I might scroll down. I'm just being honest here. Depends how interesting the first part is. So what I really like is this newspaper layout, and I think that's one of those examples of you can learn a lot from different publications, and they typically have columns of text rather than having it run all the way across. Like no one does it. That, you have that in books, but books have a very different format. So I think it's a nice way to digest information for me to see, okay, just one paragraph at a time. Like it's not a novel, and having something, and I'm not going to read it all in detail now because I actually have to finish up, but having the text, having a chart, text and a chart, text and a chart. Like I think that's a very good idea to structure the information. So we have, and I love that the title, there's no mention of business applications or business formation, and you don't have to. You can use different words. And I like that he's used entrepreneurship boom, because not only is that accurate, but also entrepreneurship, I think, is a term we use much more commonly these days for people starting a business. So they're not necessarily founders, or I don't know what else you would call them, owners or directors necessarily. They're entrepreneurs. And that to me immediately makes me think, oh, somebody's starting something new. And I like that the green of the pandemic kind of goes throughout the different charts. You can also see it later on. I would need to digest it in a bit more detail. But yeah, I really like the design and the layout. He always does really good stuff, makes it nice and clean. And I imagine there is, tooltips for, the different business applications. And what's going on up here? Retail trade. Okay, so we've got the different categories or industries, how to read the following charts. So that's an explanation of how to read the stuff below. Now, that is something where I'd love your opinion, even though we're running out of time. Should charts be created in a way that they need an explanation, or should they be self-explanatory? And I think, it depends. Oh, always the right answer. It depends on your audience, and especially if you have a small multiple chart, they might be smaller and condensed. You can't necessarily put enough text in each box to fully explain it. But having a legend is really helpful for that as well. Okay. So with that, I have to come to an end because I have to go to the airport. It's always nice to see people tuning in, writing some comments, being engaged. Thank you, Andy, also for moderating the comments a bit and helping out. I hope you found that useful. If you did, apply the lessons you've learned to your own visualization this week or next week or in future weeks. And yeah, looking forward to doing this again next week. We have to figure out what time, because I'm at an event all day on the Wednesday, but we'll let you know in advance of when we'll schedule it, and then we'll see you again next week. Take care, everyone.